Hello everyone, welcome back to another Oberon Helminth showcase. Today the ability that I'm going to be showcasing is Wrathful Advance. And the build that I have for it is one of my favorites that I put on Oberon. First of all, here is the fashion for it. Uh, it's an alteration of one of my old fashions, where would it be? It would be, yeah, here. Yeah, it's an alteration of this fashion, like one of my very this is basically like the first fashion that I made for Oberon. Uh, and then I later altered it when I was able to get the Taurus helmet. I altered it by putting the Taurus helmet on, and yeah, that was it. So basically, my first Oberon fashion, right? But if I go back to this build here, I mean this fashion here, as you can see, I made further alterations to it. You know, I still have the Prime details on, but I put on the Wendigo skin and changed the attachments a little bit. And of course, it's the Andana. Uh, one of my favorite fashions here too. But anyway, let's talk about the build. Yes, I did order. So I'm just busy. Anyway, uh, what was I about to say? Okay, so I have a bunch of strength on here. I also have high efficiency. It is technically max efficiency when I have seismic bond active. All right, so basically maximum efficiency. If I wasn't using seismic bond, I would replace Augur Secrets, which is actually how I had the build before the companion update. So yeah, yeah. So I have a lot of strength. I have a decent amount of range, which is mainly for like the armor removal, but it also helps with just the teleport range of Wrathful Advance. It would help me be a bit quicker in cases where like enemies are a bit more spread out, especially since the Keratinos build I'm using melee influence, right? So as you'll see when I do the gameplay, I really don't need armor removal. This thing is just going to like shred regardless of it. In basically every case except like maybe like acolytes and stuff. But having the armor removal, like particularly if like enemies scale up like way past conjunction survival level, like I'm probably gonna do like 10 to 20 minutes on there just to like show this, but like, well, 10 to 20 minutes just to like showcase the build overall, but like maybe like an hour or two in, like you'd really start to see the use of armor removal on this. But like the vast majority of enemies are just not tough enough for that. Um, but yeah, the armor removal it would come into play there if you're not. And I mean the stats you use for the armor removal, it's basically the same as you'd want anyway, right? So like I said, the range is good for teleporting, and the strength is of course good for damage. So you know this just works really well regardless. This setup, regardless of whether you need the armor removal or not. Uh, as you can also see, I have Swift Momentum here alongside both of the heavy wind-up speed mods for melee. And that's just so I can like sort of cycle between heavy attacking and building combos as quickly as possible. So of course I'm using Rhoda here. I have a pretty good reason for it. But I'm using Rhoda here uh, with the decent amount of fire rate from Malcolm's Shotgun Barrage and from Reinforced Bond here. Reinforced Bond with Blast Shield. So Blast Shield is of course going to like really like skyrocket the overshield levels way past the amount that I need for this. While since it's a melee setup, I have Prime Pack Leader which will protect those overshields. Um, so this should be on pretty much constantly. Uh, let's see, these are pretty much unnecessary. I say this is quite helpful, whereas this is just you know, just helps the mode do its own killing. Hardened Gauge is pretty strong, especially with Seismic Bond. Also giving like a shockwave to it. Uh, and then also like that being boosted by Manifold Bond. That's why I chose these two mods in general, just so that the mode can do its own killing quite well. It is pretty strong. And of course I have this Burst Laser. I should have used regular Burst Laser, honestly, just because it would be a bit better for Hardened Gauge, because of the ribbon disposition specifically. But, you know, this is perfectly fine. Actually, I'm not even sure if there's a difference in disposition. I'd have to check that. I assume there was, but there might not be. But I'm not gonna worry about that. It's, you know, use whatever. um, I'm just saying. So this top row and like these two mods, these are the things that you really want, whereas the other things are just optional. All right. So, uh, and the reason why you want the synth mods is really so that you can have the auto reload as quickly as possible. Because like I was saying, you know, you're trying to alternate as quickly as possible between shooting and heavy attacking, and that auto reload is going to help you just, you know, having a lot of auto reload is going to help you get that ammo back during those like short periods of time when you're heavy attacking. Uh, Now my ribbon does help with that because the auto reload is based on modded magazine capacity. So especially if you're not using a ribbon like this, you want those like extra synth mods to really like boost that up. Also for synth mods, also for like the last synth mod, I have Fusilight here. I've been trying to get a ribbon for it. Uh, as you can see, I have Reflex drawn here, which I would definitely move to X-List if I had spare X-List adapters. Um, but this update is really up the demand of X-List adapters because of mainly because of Tennokai. You know, Tennokai just makes X-List adapters a huge power boost for melee weapons. And I'll talk another time about how much I really don't like Tennokai. This is about Wrathful Advance, thankfully, which which is more or less normal heavy attacks. As you can see on my Caratinos, I do have a heavy efficiency ribbon, which is normally kind of useless. As you can see on my other builds, it's like, but like I'm honestly trying to get a second Caratinos ribbon, just for my normal builds now. Whereas this used to be like just my overall normal, but now it's kind of just relegated to purely being for my Wrathful Advance build. So it's unfortunate, especially considering how many heavy efficiency ribbons I have for different weapons, but oh well. Um, yeah, I'll talk about that another time because I really don't want to rant like that in this video. um, let's see, anything else to mention? I guess focus. You really don't need a particular focus ability for this build. So I'm using Moderize um, specifically because the power strength boost buffs renewal, and that buff to renewal is going to help my allies. Uh, that's like the whole reason behind it. You could use Naramon. The nice thing about Naramon is that, you know, if you're unable to attack for a long period of time, it's going to help you to keep your combo up. But you get a whole lot of combo duration. Alright, so if we look at my Caratinos here, with my aura and everything, I have, what is that? 26 combo duration. And since the whole point of the build is to alternate as quickly as possible between building combo back up and actually using it in the heavy attack, you're not going to boost that combo in combat. There's just basically no way. Um, so you don't really need Naramon. It's going to help in like those rare scenarios where, you know, where you do have to just like travel for a longer period of time for that to happen. So that's why I use Matarite. You know, I would consider basically anything here except like Unaru. Like, I don't think there's. I guess if you die, you can do like Last Grasp with Unaru. So yeah, basically anything here is good. You know, you can do Vidarin if you want to just revive your allies faster. Especially since you do have Amalgam Shotgun Barrage on Rada. It would also be really good because you are, what do you call it? This is not a tanky build. You know, there's a lot of like strength on it, which you know gives a lot of armor from renewal. But because there isn't really a health boost, it's not going to like face tank anything for like any like particular period of time. So having what do you call it, Vizarin to get those faster revives, and you know I think it's 4 instant revives. That could be really good. Yeah, I don't need to talk about what do you call it, focus anymore, because honestly, just use whatever, like I said. Um, so yeah, I think that's everything. So let's get into the mission. I'm actually going to do it solo this time, which I know is kind of unusual for my videos, um, but yeah, I think it's gonna help to showcase just how you survive this build and sort of like the damage output. It's not going to showcase some of the stuff like you know how you like can use the speed, if your teammates are like spread out and stuff, you know. Uh, but I think this is just a bit better for the showcase overall. All right, so let's begin. So something I love about this build is that it has is just like the sort of synergy that it has. So just to sort of like explain what I mean, I don't know how many of you remember when Saren was originally reworked, but when she was reworked, but I'm specifically thinking about the rework when she lost the ability to use spores on her molt. That one, which was a very long time ago. So she got that rework, and you know, basically what she got in that rework was a bunch of added effects to her abilities when they were used together. I think Saren was always like a frame that had like a lot of ability synergy, but they really sort of like upped it with sort of like the rationale that like basically the abilities would mutate when they interact with each other, and like sort of being like an infested or like infested themed frame. That really suited Saren. So you know, I think it was a really good rework and stuff. But a problem that I had is that that sort of ability synergy started to become a trend. Like for example, Oberon, his armor removal is tied to it's tied to the interaction between. Oops, I meant to Wrathful Advance here. By the way, Wrathful Advance doesn't work very well on stairs. I should mention that, or on inclines in general. Um, but it's tied to the interaction between Hallowed Ground and Reckoning, right? So, and I think that is a very sort of lazy way of adding synergy. Like I said, it was good for Saren, right? But as like a sort of like trend, I don't like that direction. Uh, and it's mainly because it takes depth away, right? So I want you to imagine this for a second. Oh my goodness. Had to manually handle the attack there. So I want you to imagine this for a second, right? So what if instead of armor removal being tied to the interaction between oh goodness, tied to the interaction between Reckoning and Hallowed Ground? What if it was fully on Reckoning, but it required radiation procs, right? So that means that if you want to remove armor, you could do something like this. You could proc enemies with radiation like that, and then do it again to remove their armor, right? But the thing is, it would still be useful to use hallowed ground, right? Because you can use hallowed ground, which is less energy, right? And then you'd remove their armor, and then hallowed ground is still up, so that any enemies that come back in, you can remove their armor, right? But also, you have other options. So let's say you want something even more like energy efficient, right? You could like let's say you had like a I don't have an AoE weapon with me, but like let's say you had an epitaph with like what's it called, like accelerated isotope, right? With accelerated isotope, oh goodness, violence. Violence is like, I think violence is the toughest one to kill because you don't get the crit chance against. You don't get the crit chance when like the silence is up. Oh, I'm not using my Rada. So like you use a weapon with accelerated isotope or something, or just mod for radiation in general. Right, so you basically prime the enemies to then hit them with AoE armor removal. Right? Or like, you know, something that, you know, will specifically work for this particular update, right? Is that you get like an influence weapon, right? That's like, that either has innate radiation or that you use, I think it's called focus. Oh, oh my goodness, I lost my, my Phoenix Renewal. I wasn't paying attention to that. I usually just cast it right after, you know, I kill violence, but, you know, it's preoccupied. So you use like a weapon that I can. So basically, any weapon in this update can use both radiation and electricity. I think. Maybe not any. Maybe any weapon. I'm not sure. I'm not gonna think about it too much. My goodness, I really don't like how this ability works on stairs. But you could do that, right? So the influence spreads the electricity procs pretty far, right? I think with my current rank, it's 18 meters. I think it maxes out at like 20 or something. Oops. I think it maxes out at like 20 meters or whatever. So you could use that. You could basically like prime enemies with radiation to then remove their armor. So it'd be like, oh my goodness. So you do that and then you just remove their armor. Right? Now you could argue that that would be overpowered or whatever. My whole point about that is that it's a lot more interesting. It brings a lot more depth to the game. Instead of having like a specific way to do things, you have a lot more options. Right? It encourages creativity. So that's why I don't like that sort of, you know, just added interaction synergy. I much rather for there to be effects that have innate synergy. You know, another example of that would be something that I've pretty much always wanted Oberon to have is a slowing effect on hallowed ground. So basically, enemies, it would be like it'd be like a Kyrinka pillar or something, right? So, or like isolated impedance is probably the better comparison. Did I open that up? Okay, no, I thought I opened that up by accident. That would have been weird. So it would be kind of like isolated impedance, alright? Not quite as much of a slow, probably, and maybe affected by strength, but basically, enemies on hallowed ground could be slowed down, alright? And the cool thing that would do is that would improve Reckoning's crowd control. So, you know, right now, if you do that, enemies are not down for like 4 seconds. Right? Oops. Enemies are crowd controlled for like 4 seconds. So if you add a slow to that, it's going to extend the duration of that crowd control. And that's different from a lot of abilities, because a lot of abilities sort of have like a time stun. I mean, like, or like a time, my goodness. Like a timed effect. Uh, whereas like, things that are based on like a particular animation, particularly like knockdowns or even like impact box. Like you probably saw during my Boom video that like I comboed Boom with Smite a lot because Gloom turns Smite into very good crowd control. It makes his stun last really long. So my combo's down. It makes the stun last really long, and that's also just an example of good synergy. There isn't like an added interaction there. It's just, you know, these things, they interact in a positive way. Right? And that's the sort of synergy that I think is really good for the game. Not just that like of course it is partially like my personal like for it. But I think allowing that creativity is what like gives things longevity. Like I think a lot of people appreciate sort of like creative builds and stuff, particularly as long as they're good. I think that's often like people's problems with like sort of like creative builds is that like they often don't think that they're good, and I think that is often the case, right? But I think like as a whole, people do enjoy creative builds, and you know this is going to, and like that like way of synergy just encourages, well, not encourages, allows for such creative builds to be made. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, I gotta kill that one too. So, you know, I think that's really good for the game. Let's see, was there anything else I wanted to talk about? In the song that I actually forgot to, I don't think I really got much of a chance to showcase it. As you can see, like how quickly like well, maybe I can showcase it against these sentients here. Let's give them a chance to do something. Where are they? Okay, they're not flying up high in the air, so I'm just gonna kill them. But basically, what you could do with Reckoning is that you can knock things out of the air. Oh my goodness, I keep accidentally using my focus. You can knock things out of the air. Oh, I'm using my Fuseli. Oh, I got this song, that's why. Get that up, back up. When did I get my Fuseli activated? Anyway. You can knock things out of the air, right? So, something that that Wrathful Advance has trouble with is targeting enemies in the air, because in order for an enemy to be targeted, they have to be in a place where they can be heavy attacked. And like that bugs out on stairs, but I think but like when they're in the air, that's actually like a situation where like it just wouldn't work, right? So what Reckoning can do is like basically no matter how high up in the air they are, you can just knock them down to the ground. And it's basically instant, right? But as fast as Reckoning casts, at least. I wouldn't say instant, but it goes as fast as Reckoning casts. And so that basically makes it that you can target basically any enemy with Wrathful Advance. I don't think there is an enemy that's like that is what do you call it? That's immune to getting knocked down by Reckoning. That is also that can also fly, right? So like for example, like the Acolytes, they don't get knocked down, but they're not going to fly, right? So it's like they're not going to be immune to being targeted by Wrathful Advance. I think the only like exceptions would be like bosses, and maybe that one what's it called? Amalgam enemy that like kind of devours other enemies. I can't remember what it's called, but like it kind of like almost like consumes enemies to like upgrade them or something. I guess it's not consuming, but you know, something like that. Something that looks like it's consuming them. Oh, my life support's going down a bit because I'm kind of been playing around. So yeah, that so besides bosses, that might be the only exception. But basically anything else, it's just you can what do you call it? You can knock them out of the air so that they're able to be heavy attack. There we go, my life support's going back up. So yeah, you know, that's also another example of like some good synergy. Yeah, so let's see. Is there anything else that I have to say? I don't really think so. I think I'm just gonna kill this last set of blue Thrax, and then I'll be done. Maybe they'll fly up enough so that I can actually show what I mean. I want to see how strong my moat is. Look at that. Hold on. Look at that. Pretty nice. Okay, hold on. Let me break this guy's overguard. Okay, and then I knock him down. See that? And of course, it didn't want to target right, but you get the point. Yeah. My only real problem with Wrathful Advance is that it can be buggy. You know, I have numerous clips of it just failing to work. I actually tried recording this video earlier. Like, I did a previous recording attempt, which I discarded because the audio was actually pretty bad. I have a new mic set up, but I'm also using my previous mic because those are also headphones. And what happened was I just set up my previous mic and then I plugged in my headphones, but the audio input sort of defaulted to my headphones. So instead of using my new mic, I'm using my old one, which made the audio quite bad. I sort of adjusted my audio for the new mic, so having my old one just turned out poorly, which is why I'm having to redo it. And in that video, which I probably should have like taken that like one clip before I deleted it, but in that like previous recording attempt, I had like a really weird bug with Wrathful Advance where like I was just floating it in the air stuck for a bit, like almost enough to like just like kill me straight up from there, like just like have me unable to do anything to protect myself basically. That's what I mean. Yeah, so I was just like floating helplessly, and yeah, that was weird. First time I saw that, but I've seen like countless times when like the targeting has failed. But you've probably also seen it here, if you like, especially if you like slow down the gameplay a little bit at certain parts. You know, you'll see that I'm aiming at an enemy and it just doesn't want to target them. So yeah, So yeah, that's like my only real issue with this ability. And you can see what I mean about like the armor removal not being necessary. Like, with like the electricity, like even with like the electricity against like the armored enemies, it's like, you know, in some cases it's gonna be a bit weak, but like once you get like the viral stacks on them and stuff, it's just like that was without viral, for example. So it's like it doesn't really need the, although the armor removal helps it, it's not really necessary. And yes, so you know it's basically there for like when the enemies like really like scale up some more. Like I was saying, like towards like I think I said it towards the beginning of the video. So yeah, just a lot of raw power, and you know, obviously since I'm not using the armor removal, this is not as good as it gets. You know, if enemies were like level like 300 or something, I could start, you know, I would start using that, you know, more regularly, and then that would just, you know, continue scaling up. I'd say this can probably, I'm gonna say, I would say presumably, like, just be enough for killing level cap, but, like, of course, I don't often have a lot of time for, you know, runs like that. I am kind of waiting for them to fix the operator void blast bug, right? Because, you know, if they fix that, then I could do, then I could reliably do, what's it called? Void Armageddon? I don't think it's Void Armageddon. It's whatever Zerman mode it is that like you have to do things with the Exilizers, that mode. Because you could do level cap in under 2 hours with that. I think it's like 90 minutes for level cap for on that mode. And like the reason why I don't do that is because the Void Blast bug basically locks you out of progressing, because you have to kill the other threats. But if your operator is just constantly doing Void Blast, you don't get to use your amp. If you don't get to use your amp, you don't get to kill them. So that bug is just a progression stopper. It's actually sort of the reason why I stopped doing oh goodness. It's actually sort of the reason why, you know, like years ago I stopped doing defense endurance when I used to like love endurance a whole lot more and had more free time. I stopped doing that because I would occasionally get invulnerable enemy bugs, which I'll try to remember to link that in the description. I have videos of that, so I'll try to remember to link that in the description just to show what I mean. And that was also a progression stopper, because obviously you had to kill all the enemies in the defense. So yeah, I stopped doing it for that reason, because, you know, it's just, you know, suddenly a bug just makes it so that you don't progress any further. And if you're trying to actually go to high levels, that just means that it's a waste of time, right? It's like in defense, like it was worse because you wouldn't be able to actually complete the mission, being that you lose everything. Whereas in like other missions, you can still complete the mission, you just have to stop at that point. But if the whole point is, again, if the whole point is to actually get to a really high level, then, you know, it's still like wasted time in that sense. So, yeah. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Like I said before, it's one of my favorite abilities to use with Oberon. Um, Another thing that's worth noting, something I probably should have said before, is that like the only shards you need for this, that like you'd really like want for this build, are these casting speed shards here. Now obviously this is like almost maximum casting speed. You don't need this much, you just need like enough that you can Well, I wouldn't even say need because, like, as you saw, I don't need to use armor removal, right? So it's just as much as like you feel comfortable like having for reckoning. That's really it. Like like if you've seen my my previous stuff, you probably know that I do have a crit damage shard Oberon, which I have edited a bit by the way. I'll talk about that later. Probably in the next showcase because oops, probably in the next showcase because I do have a new build to show. I moved my what do you call it my pillage build to another Oberon. I put a new build here, so that's cool. If you notice, I didn't put it on my crit damage chart Oberon just because I think they can like you don't really need the extra damage on this. As I basically showcased, you really don't need that. Um, and I think just the casting speed is a lot more helpful, particularly like if you get to a point where you need armor removal, you want to do that as quickly as possible, in my opinion. So that's why I put it on this Oberon. And you know, as I was basically saying, it kind of shows that you don't really need shards for this build. All right, so you know, you want like multi-shot and fire it on your Rada. Uh, your most important thing is really your Karatinos here. Uh, you want maximum heavy efficiency, and then you want to build for damage in any way you can. Uh, for your Oberon, oops, wrong build. For your Oberon, you put on Power String. Uh, you can drop like range or strength if you want. Like you don't need these, for example. Um, just because like you know it's like especially if you're like using especially if you're not doing armor removal, like you just don't really need that extra. Uh, Even though it's very good to have. And yeah, that's basically it. So it's not a hard build to put together. Uh, it's arguably a hard build to play. I think a lot of people who are watching this, like, especially since like I know like my my viewers are kind of like weighted towards like people who play Conclave and stuff, right? So I think a lot of people who watch this will have an easy time. Well, somewhat of an easy time using this, even if they don't play Conclave. Like you know, if you generally have an active way of playing, you should be able to use this build just fine. Now, if you don't, I actually highly recommend that you just try something like this. Like, especially like even if you need to like put like Vitality on here, even like Umbral Vitality if you have the room, right? Oh, it actually fits here for some reason. Um, yeah, so like if you wanted to like you know boost like the effective hit points of it a bit, you could do that. But you know, I think you know it's good to you know sort of be able to survive off of minimal stuff because that just it opens up your options to using a lot of different things, and I think it just makes the game more enjoyable. So if you try out, let me know what you think. Uh, I think I quite consistently ramble at the end of my videos, more than more than I intend to. Not necessarily more than I would like, but more than I intend to. So I'm gonna end it here. Like I said, hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you all later.